So when we came in today, the room, they had rearranged the room and we kind of rearranged it a little bit, but mostly I think most of us are liking being oriented this way. It opens it up. So I thought, I'm not powerless. I can write the office and say we like it this way, and then we'll see what they do. But I'll send you a message, see what happens. So this Saturday is a half-day sitting. Please make every effort to be here. We haven't been doing them regularly, monthly, like we had been doing, and we'll move during practice period back into monthly all-day sits. But please come on Saturday on Zoom if that's the only way we can get ourselves here. Hi Ellis. Hi everybody. But if you can be in person, that's great too. I think it's from 9 to 12:30. Is that what it is? Yeah. Okay, great. And register. You can send Gretchen an email. We'll send out another email. So we're going to spend the next few weeks studying Bodhisattvas. What a surprise. In case you hadn't noticed, this is one of the themes of the things that I love and makes seems to me in this time to talk about bodhisattvas and bodhisattva practice. What are we doing here, and what is this practice about anyway, and what's it have to do with the troubles of the world, and what is awakening enlightenment? And anyway, so we're gonna our source book will be Faces of Compassion. I recommend it. It's probably not too expensive to get in remainder because it's been around for a long time, and there's great images in here. Faces of Compassion, Classic Bodhisattva Archetypes and Their Modern Expression by Taigen Dan Layton, with a foreword by Joan Halifax. I'm going to, as we do, because each week my plan at this point is we're going to do a different bodhisattva, one of the great bodhisattvas. Not that we aren't great bodhisattvas, we are great bodhisattvas, but we're not great bodhisattvas. So we're going to focus on the great bodhisattvas, and then we'll find out who those great bodhisattvas are through us, so that we become, and the world becomes even more great and enlightened and compassionate and aware. And I will, we're going to be doing some screen sharing of images of them, but again, if you were interested, he really does have some really lovely images and descriptions. And what Taigen does, Dan does, he's a friend, Taigen, is so who are the archetypes of that bodhisattva today? You know, it's like if you looked around, who is it who is an embodiment of Avalokiteshvara or Maitreya, and so we'll be doing that too. Trying as always to make this as relevant as possible. So let's begin. So what I want to do today is I want to do a little introduction about bodhisattvas. It's not like we haven't done this before, but going back over and over, it slowly, we get wet, soaks in. I want to say a few words. I want to read a little bit from Joan Halifax's introduction. And then we're going to do, this is assuming we'll see how much time we have. We're going to do a little guided meditation and then see what arises in us about all of this. Buddhism starts with we're not basically sinful or bad, or there's nothing inherent that we have to get over or fix. Everybody, each person is completely imbued with, the whole world is imbued with Buddha nature, basic goodness. Such a relief. That's the inherent the inherent isness of everything. And so everything and everyone has the potential to be a Buddha. And you don't have to earn it. You don't have to, yeah, well, if I had just been good enough, nobody can take it away. You couldn't tarnish it, even if you like dumped shit on it for 100 million thousand years. The Lotus Sutra is one of the, we'll talk a little bit, I love the Lotus Sutra, talk a little bit about it today and maybe ongoing, because the Lotus Sutra is full of amazing bodhisattvas with amazing names. I'll call some of them forward, just not today, but probably later, just for the fun of it. So we all naturally, everything, and all human beings have Buddha nature, but we have to wake up to it, and we have to make use of it and put it into practice in our daily lives. It's like otherwise, oh, I was going to say, it's like otherwise, what a waste, but it's not like it's a waste because it's all fine, but it's like there's this potential. And because we all care about the world and our own well-being and the well-being of each other is like, so let's activate it. Let's live it. And so that's what a bodhisattva does. So bodhisattva, two different entry gates, well, at least 100 million thousand, but I'll name two, is one who seeks to be awakened by working for others. So we seek to wake up not for ourselves, but through relationship and being in relationship with other people and goodness, and through our actions and speech and behavior towards others. The second is bodhisattvas are those that we can learn from. That's why we look around and go, oh, that person looks like there's something about the way that person is that inspires me. So we all kind of do that for each other. And then, of course, sometimes there are bodhisattvas like Mother Teresa, or somebody who inspires the whole world. But we need that. It helps us so that we can more and more see the Buddha in everybody. Even the ones that you think, no way. It's like, no. Buddha nature and basic goodness is the inherent nature of everything. And anyone can be a bodhisattva to us if we're open to seeing and experiencing others as bodhisattvas. And when we see it in others, it changes the way we interact. And of course, it would change the way, it's like if there's somebody in the world who's really been treated really badly and somebody walks by them on the street and just says hello or offers some kindness, these things do matter, small acts of kindness. So we're living interdependently with all beings. We're all doing Buddha's work in small and big ways in the world. And we're waking to free ourselves from our own ego, ego views. And the more I do that, the more it helps you. And the more you do that, it helps me. And the beautiful thing, I mean, in Buddhism is that when one person wakes up, the whole world wakes up. It's like, this is where we get into timelessness and vast spaciousness. So it's a kind of act of faith, but it's also, it's like, if one blossom happens, the whole tree bursts into bloom. There's a lot of faith in this. So you care about the world, take care of yourself, take care of body, speech, and mind. So a bodhi is the definition of bodhi is the state of being awake, and a sattva is a sentient being with the mind or intention, a sense of strength and courage. So bodhisattva is one whose strength is directed towards awakening with and for all beings. Like, that's what you're here for. What else would you do? I mean, please do your dishes, that's part of it too. But it really is, you want to wake up for everybody. So where it begins is with Bodhicitta. We're going to do a guided meditation. I found one from Emma Children, which I think is nice. We'll do that later. So Bodhicitta is really the entry point of the path, we could say, because some people are going to be doing way-seeking mind talks in a few weeks, is when there's an awakening of the longing to be able to wake up so that you can be of help to others, not to mention yourself. There's some kind of quickening. Like before that, you're just sort of walking around. I mean, I still sort of walk around like this, but bodhicitta is like, oh, it feels like your heart starts to quicken, and your eyes start to open. And from that point, you're on the path, because once this has happened, there's no going back. I mean, you can forget for a moment, but once you know, you know. And it takes initiative and effort, and it takes courage and strength, but not in the sense of, but in the sense of, yes, I will. Yes, I will. Over and over and over again. Well, I wanted to say something about the Lotus Sutra, but maybe I'll do that on Saturday. That'll get you all here on Saturday. We'll talk about the Lotus Sutra. But I want to read to you some from Joan Halifax's introduction, because I like some of what she says. Lotus in a sea of fire. When we consider the history of the Bodhisattva archetypes, we touch the whole and long history of Buddhism. We also touch the present moment and the suffering of all beings in the world today. And we are invited to consider the future and how we must live with courage and love, wrapping around each other, that we and all beings may awaken from this rough dream of our present world to a world that is sane and kinder. Amen. The Bodhisattvas blossomed like fine and rare flowers in China some 2,000 years ago. Though their seeds are everywhere in the old Buddhism of India, and we feel their presence in the four boundless abodes of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. The Brahma Viharas, we've studied them. So we all have that one down. No, we keep coming back to that over and over. With the advent of Buddhism to China and the opening of practice and devotion to the world of lay people, active and compassionate archetypes developed in the ground of everyday life and in the popular imagination. These archetypes have a very human feel to them. They are not remote or passive, but rather involved with the world, with you, with me, and with all beings. The Bodhisattva archetypes all manifest flavors of compassion. We're going to be studying different flavors of compassion. One's chocolate, one's strawberry. And each bodhisattva has this is the mark of a bodhisattva, is that a Buddha is at a certain point, a Buddha just goes on to do the worlds. But a Buddha, which is fine at a certain point. I mean, it's all fine. But what a bodhisattva does is keeps saying, no, I'm going to die and I'm going to come back. And I'm going to come back, and it's a choice. I'm going to come back over and over again, and I'm going to take a different incarnation so that I can be here to help. So whatever you think, the strangeness of your birth or your circumstances, or, oh man, if I hadn't gotten this or whatever, is you got exactly the life you need to wake up with and for all beings. Don't waste it. You got depression, use depression. You got fear, of course we all do. Wake up in the midst of fear for all beings. If you got this much love, wake up in the midst of this much love. So it becomes more, and anyway, I think you get whatever anger. It's like, it's not a mistake. Practice with it for the sake of all beings. Coming back touches us, the sacrifice of the Bodhisattvas deciding to do this, and has inspired millions for thousands of years. And their presence is in our very time, pointing to guiding principles for a more compassionate and sane world. So Bodhisattvas are mythic figures. We're talking about the great Bodhisattvas right now, and we'll be turning towards Shakyamuni Buddha next week, and then we'll Manjushri and Maitreya and Samantabhadra and Avalokiteshvara and the different Tara archetypes. They're really, I love these. They ride on elephants, and and Mayumi Oda did wonderful female incarnations of paintings. So we'll get to bring forward all of these. So there are the archetypes, but they also function within the psyche. They're not just art objects or visual objects. They're inside of each one of us. Archetypes of compassion and myth and psychology fuse in the presence and activity of these compassionate beings. Tibetan Buddhists call bodhisattvas awakened warriors. They really use the language of warriors. I don't, doesn't resonate with me, but I understand the warrior part. For they manifest great strength of character and virtue for the sake of others, and they practice the paramitas and the six perfections, which I think we'll do some more on Saturday too, to remind ourselves, because we've studied some of this, but we forget about generosity and about ethical behavior and patience and enthusiasm and equanimity and wisdom, steadfast devotion, and skillful means. There are practices that have been laid down across time. You want to practice like a bodhisattva? Pay attention here. The heart of the bodhisattva is always turned towards other beings. Such a one chooses to place herself in the most difficult situations and has the energy and natural commitment to harrow souls from the hells that they have fled. And she does this with no attachment to outcome and with a spirit of radical optimism. Indeed, the whole life, we're little bodhisattvas. The great bodhisattvas, like Jizo. Jizo Bodhisattva, you all know I know Jizo Bodhisattva. Well, we're going to do Jizo, Kitsanagarba Bodhisattva too. Jizo Bodhisattva's most favorite realm is the hell realms. It's like Jizo Bodhisattva just wants to go help people in hell realms. That's why when you do a Jizo ceremony for grief, is people who have lost children, people who have lost loved ones. That's a hell realm. Jizo just says, I'm here. I'm going to be here with you. The whole life of the Bodhisattva is nothing other than helping others. Yet the Bodhisattva is like a wooden puppet whose strings are pulled by the suffering of the world. There is a feeling of choicelessness and egolessness when the archetype of the Bodhisattva is realized. The right hand takes care of the left without hesitation, not shining from praise or shrinking from blame. Bodhisattvas also realize the great natural boundlessness of mind and heart, and are the exemplars of mother wisdom, which is Prajna. Thought about doing her, but she's not really a bodhisattva. But someday we'll do a thing on Prajna Paramita, the mother of all the Buddhas. Bodhisattvas cannot be burned by the fire of the world, though they stand in the middle of it, a lotus in a sea of fire. They inspire veneration no matter what our tradition, and remind us of what we can be and how we can be in the face of outrage and misery. So if you haven't noticed any outrage and misery these days, take a breath and call in a bodhisattva and see what kind of personal suffering or sadness or just what needs to be taken care of around you. And these bodhisattva archetypes will, I think, will inspire all of us. So what I wanted to do now is, here's a Bodhicitta practice from Pema Chodron. So I'm going to suggest if everybody can just take a meditation posture, intention, breath, and just give yourself to this practice of generating love and compassion for all human beings. The best way to begin this practice is by thinking of a person whose suffering you feel strongly and whose happiness is very important to you. This could be someone you know or have known, or someone you've seen on the street or read about in the newspaper. The thought of certain people naturally and easily awakens bodhicitta in us because we care about them and we don't want them to suffer. Sometimes it's also okay to bring to mind an animal. You're having trouble coming up with a person. But if you can, and a person arises, and whether you feel love, gratitude, or compassion for them, say, may they be free of suffering and the root of suffering. May they enjoy happiness and the root of happiness. There are two aspects of working with bodhicitta, both of equal importance. One is connecting with the flow of bodhicitta we already feel, and the other is being awake to where that flow is blocked. So you can do this practice not only thinking of people you care about, but also visualizing people you don't like. It's important to have an unbiased, compassionate attitude toward whatever is arising. Think now of an area of the world that's in great turmoil, an area where you know people and animals are suffering a lot. When you've chosen that place, think of the men there and say, may all the men in that place be free of suffering and the root of suffering. May they enjoy happiness and the root of happiness. Breathing in and out. Be with this wish, with sending this wish. And then think of all the women in that place and wish that they too could be free of suffering and the root of suffering, and that they could enjoy happiness and the root of happiness. And then think of all the children in that place and wish that they be free of suffering and the root of suffering, and that they might enjoy happiness and the root of happiness. And finally, think of all the animals in that place, the mammals, the birds, the fish, the insects, and all the other animals, and wish that they be free of suffering and the root of suffering, that they might enjoy happiness and the root of happiness. Sometimes When we do this kind of bodhicitta practice, we touch on people who immediately awaken warm feelings in us. Other times, though, we just feel numb. Or there are times when we contact the hardness of our heart. Noticing this too is very good, because it shows us when we open and when we're closed. We should notice all these things with compassion and loving kindness towards ourselves. Because the more we're able to feel tenderness towards ourselves, the more easily it flows to others. So right now, wish yourself well. May I be free of suffering. May you be free of suffering. May you enjoy happiness and the root of happiness. And if you find a little closed or big closed, hardened or numb place in yourself, just touch it really gently. Breathe right there with compassion. May all beings be free of suffering and the root of suffering. May all beings enjoy happiness and the root of happiness. Bodhicitta is the root of Bodhisattva vow. Bodhisattvas being in the world, awakening each one of us.